All right, hello everyone. Mr. No Souls here, and today we are going to be making the very last character class here, and it is the Wizard. They are perhaps one of my favorite classes, if not my favorite, by a pretty wide margin. However, this time they've been. They're not as strong as they used to be, but they're interesting in a way. I still think that thematically they are quite useful, and I think that the subclasses that they're giving are interesting, if all a little samey minus one. But we'll get into that when we get to it. So right out the gate, same as always, intelligence is that primary ability. They are very squishy with a d6 for their hit point die. They still have that intelligence and wisdom saving throw proficiencies, which again makes them very much favor the magical casting. They get two proficiencies of a decently sized list: arcane, history, insights, investigation, medicine, nature, or religion, which are great. And unlike a lot of the other classes, it's actually really important which one you pick because of the fact that you gain expertise later on only on one of these skill proficiencies. So that's really important to keep in mind. So most likely you're going to want to pick Arcana and then choose that to be your, expertise, or maybe it's nature or something else if that's really what you're focusing on, but most likely you're going to pick Arcana and then get expertise in it. Then you're going to have simple weapon proficiency, which is like your daggers and quarterstaves. So you're not very strong in the martial category, and you have no armor, none whatsoever. So yeah, that no surprise, you're caster focused. You are not supposed to be in the front with this, but there are some interesting choices that they have for wizards in the subcategories. Your starting equipment, which normally you only get two choices. I would actually recommend in this case to go with the first choice, mostly because you don't really get much gold for choosing the money. You have two daggers, an arcane focus quarterstaff, robe, a spell book, and then you also get a scholar's pack, which is your backpack, book, ink pen, the lamp, 10 flasks of oil, 10 sheets of parchment, and a tinderbox. And then on top of that, you get 5 gold pieces. It's for the bang for the buck, that's about what you're going to want to pick anyways. The most important thing really is your spell book. Everything after that is not really important. You're not really going to be using daggers too often, or your quarterstaff. I mean, maybe if something gets really close and it's really weak, you might bonk it with it, but most of the time you're going to be using your cantrips. Everything else is just kind of there, so that 55 gold pieces isn't really going to give you anything that you're particularly going to want more um, than what that is already. And it's not much gold anyway, so yeah. So similar to how they described warlocks this time around, they're also really focused on the exhaustive study of magic's inner workings. And instead of making deals, they effectively are just like, you know what, I really wanted to study how everything is supposed to be, you know, functioning, and I'm not going to have someone give me a dotted path to the end goal. I'm going to figure it all out on my own. And they're really like the scholars of the magical world, often charting their own paths out into the magical realms. Now, there's some really famous ones like Big B, Tasha, Mordecai. Like you've heard of Tasha's hideous laughter. If you've looked at a lot of the stories or general spell books, Tasha's hideous laughter is almost always in there. Yolande. So, quite a few famous wizards across the multiverse. Now, starting level 1, you get the core wizards table. You also get the wizards feature table. So, standard as everyone else, and also standard to many of the other casters. You just get their hit die if you multi-class into them. You get the level 1 wizard features, and see the multi-classing rules in Chapter 2. So, yeah, it's very bare bones. Like, you're not getting anything from this class just from dipping into it, other than just like some standard features and stuff. You're not going to gain weapon proficiencies or armors or stuff like that. So yeah, right there, right out the gate, you have quite a few cantrips, starting with 3. You have 4 prepared spells, and you get 2 level 1 spells slots. That's not bad. And it's not as dense as some of the other like tables. It really isn't, but it's it's still good. Like the amount of magic you have available and these prepared spells, like this is very big. You have 25 prepared spells by the end. And the way it works is you have your spell book that carries like your vault of spells, and from that vault, you are picking a subset that you are actively using. And on top of that, then you have your subclass as well. So you have like half of your spell book off the top of your head at this given moment. Then you have an X amount that's given to you by your like domain or your what do they call it again? Yeah, your subclass. So you then have like an extra nth amount of couple spells. So it's like you're rocking like 75% more spells possible. But in practice, you don't have that many more spells to use, which is kind of a nerf in a way. Because, yeah, in theory, you have every single spell necessary to answer to a situation, but in actuality, you're still limited in your responsiveness. So yeah, you might have that one perfect spell for that situation. You might not have the spell slot to use though. It is what it is. Like there is one class that kind of has an ability to recycle some of these higher spell slots into lower ones, which is nice. It is useful. And there are some ways to get yourself like additional cantrips with some of the subdomains. But I I mm, I really feel like they put a thumb down on a lot of the pure caster classes and really weakened how strong they are as casters and their sticking power. Like they undoubtedly very powerful. They don't have the stay potential that they used to have. And that's really a big detriment when you're starting to look at these. But they still have the ability to melt your face if you really piss them off. Like they are still extremely powerful. So right out the gate, you get your spellcasting ability, which is very similar to every other one. You get your 3 wizard cantrips that you get to pick. One thing of interest is at a long rest, you can replace one of your cantrips with another wizard cantrip of your choice. It's not limited to what's in your spell book. It is any cantrip, as long as it's a wizard cantrip, which is pretty nice. So you can constantly flip out your cantrips, and you can have 3 at the start. At level 4, you get an additional one, and at level 10, you get an additional one. So it brings you up to 5 cantrips that you can regularly swap out. That's pretty good. So that's a lot of spells that you're just going to constantly be able to spam out without having to really worry about dipping into your more limited but very large pool of spells. You also have a spell book, and this thing is really important. As I said earlier, this is like your vault of spells that you really want to make sure is safe. So your wizard apprenticeship accumulates into the creation of a unique spell book. It is a tiny object that weighs 3 pounds and contains 100 pages and can be read only by you or someone casting Identify. No, it's not encrypted or anything like that. if you know magic and you know the identification spell and someone gets your book, they can read it. They could use your book in theory. So that is something that you need to be very aware of. Granted, doesn't mean that they necessarily have those spells prepared and are immediately able to use them. They would have to have your book in long rest with it and then be able to swap out some spells with it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You determine the appearance of materials. The book contains the level 1 plus spells that you know. It starts with 6 level 1 spells of your choice. And then whenever you gain a wizard level, you get to add 2 wizard spells of your choice to that spell book. That's great. And note, each of these spells must be a level that you have a spell slot for, as shown in the wizard feature table. The spells are accumulation of the arcane research you do regularly. So note that if you find like a 15 level wizard's spell book at level 5, you could use everything, and they will have everything up to. They will have 19 spells that they would, in theory, know, but they can hold all the way up to a level 8 spell. And on top of that, they're going to have 6 at the start, and then so 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34 spells are going to be in there. 34 potentially entirely new spells that you're going to take from another wizard, and you're going to then be able to potentially use them yourself. Now, granted, it doesn't say anything about like entombment or you can only have one spell book with you at a time. It even mentions actually that you're probably going to want to have a backup spell book. So yeah, it doesn't actually say that you are relegated to only having one spell book. If you were to, in theory, have 2 wizards in a party and you both learned separate spells, you could, in theory, copy over each other's spells relatively quickly to just get these massive libraries of spells, because there is no technical hard limitation to how many spells can be inside of a book. You can get a huge, absolutely massive listing. So yeah, that's something I want to say. Like you could, in theory, have like every single spell in the known world you could have put in here. That that is insane. Like flexible power that you could get. Just saying. So you get the spell book, you contain all level 1 spells, you get 2 additional spells to your choice each time you level up. The spells are accumulation of the arcane research, then you get the spell slots, you know, as many as a feature table. You only gain them back on long rest, which kind of sucks because it means you're really locked into that long rest. Sorry, I have hiccups right now. Now, prepared spells, you get +1 spells are available to cast with this feature. To do so, choose 4 spells from your spell book. The chosen spells must be of a level which you have a spell slot. The number of spells on your list increases as you gain wizard levels, shown in the prepared spells column on the wizard feature table. Whenever this number increases, choose additional wizard spells until the number of spells on your list match the numbers in the table. Chosen spells must be a level which you have spell slots. For example, if you have a level 3 wizard, your list of prepared spells can include 6 spells of level 1 and 2 in any combination. So you could be entirely level 2 spell heavy, which is entirely pointless to do because like your level 1 spells can't, like you could upcast, but like you only have a certain number of level 2 spells, so it's like, you know, like if you were entirely level 2, and you burnt all your level 2 spell slots, you couldn't go down and combine them, like your level 1 spell slots to become a level 2 spell slot. Like, that's not something you can do. That's a druid thing. So, yeah. So, number of spells of which is shown in prepared spell column. Whenever number increases, choose it, so on and so forth, including number of spells and a combination. If wizard features gives you spells, they're always prepared. Your spells don't count against the number of spells you can choose using this feature, but those spells otherwise count as wizard spells for you. Yeah, that's fine. Changing your prepared spells. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can change the list of prepared spells, replacing any of the spells there with spells from your spell book. So you could, in theory, come into a situation with one set of spells and leave a situation after you long rest with an entirely different prepared kit. That's very respectable. That's something you have to look at and be just like, man, I really, really would like to be able to just entirely change my kit. Like, that's immensely powerful. So if you got a couple points in fighter and you decide not to be a Eldritch Knight and you decide, you know what, I'm gonna go get like a couple points in wizard, um, yeah, you can 100% throw out like this. This is, whew, calls out your intelligence, calls out your focus, that you can use either your arcane focus or your spellbook, so you can entirely forego a staff if you want and just go spellbook. But you know, spellbooks are, if they get destroyed, that's a big investment you lose. Like, that's a lot of money and time you have to spend to rebuild that thing. So sometimes it's just safer to keep your spellbook somewhere safe and then only use that arcane focus. Arcane focuses are a lot cheaper to replace than a spellbook. Just saying. Expanding and replacing a spellbook. The spells you add to your spellbook as you gain levels reflect your ongoing magical research, but you might find other spells during your adventure that you can add to the book. You can discover a wizard spell on a spell scroll, for example, and then copy it into your spellbook. Copying a spell into your book. When you find a 1+ wizard spell, you can copy it into your spellbook. If it's a level, you can prepare, and if you have time to copy it. For each level of the spell, the transcription takes 2 hours and costs 50 gold pieces. Afterwards, you can prepare the spell like any other spells in the spellbook. Copying the book. You can copy a spell from your spellbook into another book. This is like copying a new spell into your spellbook, but faster. Since you already know how to cast the spell, you need only spend 1 hour and 10 gold pieces for each level of the copied spell. That's pretty nice. So you get to make your copying into the book, and then you just get to remake the book. And if you lose your spell book, you can use the same product to transcribe the wizard spells that you have prepared into a new spell book. Filling out the remainder of new book requires you to find new spells to do so. For this reason, many wizards keep backup spell books. Yeah. So note that if you were to lose, this is actually something I forgot to mention. If you lose your spell book and then you make a new spell book, so you've recreated a spell book now, it will fill only. So let's say you have your spell book, full spell book. These are the spells you know. Well, actually, since you generally know about half your spells, it looks like. So let's say you get, let's be kind, you have 3. So you have a little over half your spells available. You have your entire spell vault here. You lose this now. You are only going to have these spells until you make a new spell book. So you remake the spell book, and now it has 3. Only the spells that you knew. and you can add in scrolls to slowly fill up all the way to max again. However, it does not mean you got back your old spells. You might not be able to find the spells, the scrolls, or certain things that you got. If you level up again, in theory, you'd be able to just choose that spell again and get it back. However, the big thing is once you're level 20, that's it. Like, you can't regain the spells that you lose. So if you're a 20th level wizard, your only real option to get back, like, the spells you're looking for is to prey on the lower level wizards and take their spell books and then transfer their magic over. Or buy them somehow. You could also buy it, but, if you're that powerful, you don't really have to make deals. You could just tell people how it is. And generally, might makes right. Not that that's the best, course of action. It might be a good idea to make friends, but everyone's got to make choices. Level 1, Ritual Adept. You can cast any spell as a ritual if that spell has the ritual tag, and the spell is in your spellbook. You needn't have the spell prepared, and you may read from the book to cast the spell that way, which is super nice. This is phenomenal because it means you can add them into your book and then never prepare them. So you can effectively just stack your spellbook with rituals you'd like to use just on that off chance. And as long as you have your spellbook readily available, you can use rituals. So if you have like some kind of pocket dimension that you always have prepared and you just pop open your pocket dimension, your spellbook's in there, grab it, come over to the body. Oh, I want to speak to dead. Okay, I can now speak to dead. It's good. Put it back in the pocket dimension, close the pocket dimension, and I'm good to go. I never had to, didn't have to expose my spellbook to much risk, only for a short period of time whenever I decided to. And many wizards choose to operate this way. They learn dimensional magic to protect their spellbooks because they are that valuable to them. So, the more you know. You also get at level 1 Arcane Recovery, which is you gain some of your magical energy when you study your spellbook. When you finish a short rest, you can choose to choose expended spell slots to recover. The spell slots you can have combined level equal no more than half your wizard level, rounded up, and none of the spell slots can be level 6 or higher. For example, if you're level 4 wizard, you can recover up to 2 levels worth of spell slots, regaining either 1 level 2 spell slot or 2 level 1 spell slots. You can't use it again until you finish a long rest, which is like, it's nice to give you a little bit more regen, but again, it's just like, why? I really feel like this is just such a hard restriction. Like, only once per long rest. Like, you are supposed to be the master of magic, and it heavily limits your ability to cast spells. Like, for a wizard, that is literally the only thing you have. And yeah, you can have 5 cantrips, and if you choose other things, you can get a couple more, so maybe like 7 cantrips. Okay, great. Yeah, it's like 7 spells to be able to throw around is nice, but it feels like a pretty heavy limiter, where previously you could throw out a lot more spells, I feel, and yeah, it's just, look what they did to my boy. Level 2, you have Scholar. While studying magic, you specialize another field of study. Choose one of the following: Arcane, History, Insight, Medicine, Nature, or Religion, and you gain Expertise, which is the same thing that the Rogues and Bard get. So when you make an ability check with a skill proficiency, which you have Expertise in, your proficiency bonus is doubled for the check. Yeah, that's great. Put that on Arcana, never have to worry about magic stuff. Now, level 3, like everyone else, you get your wizard subclass. Interesting though, you get 4 here. Not all of them have 4, most of them have 3. So it's nice to see that they're at least acknowledging that the wizard used to have the most different types of domains you could pick. Even though now they're limiting it down, it's relatively straightforward, it's fine. Sad to not see Necromancer in there. It's kind of surprising considering they are like one of the most famous types of wizard. But okay. Level 4, ability score improvement. You get an improvement for, what was it, 1 or 2? Oh, you get to choose an ability score improvement or a feat, and then you get it again at 8, 12, and 16. Alright, that's fine. At level 5, you gain the ability to memorize spells. Whenever you finish a short rest, you can study your spell book and replace one of your +1 wizard spells you have prepared for your spellcasting feature with another +1 spell from your book, which is nice. It effectively allows you to quickly rotate out, even though you will gain absolutely nothing as far as your ability to actually cast those spells. You do at least have the option to have them available. So as long as you didn't tap yourself out and tap out your resupply, you can, in theory, have the answer to the problem. Now, whether or not you're going to actually have the ability to use them, you have no more ability to use magic than any other innate spellcaster. Yeah, it makes me sad. I know I'm harping on that a lot, but like it's still really powerful. You have a massive list. Gaining the ability to swap one out, like, while useful, isn't that great. I'd rather, honestly, than have the ability to add one extra spell. I would rather have the ability to combine spell slots to get like a higher level one or break a higher level one down into a lower level. I would just be able to have spells available. Like that's really what I would want. Um, yeah, disappointing. That I mean, from the way I like to play, maybe for most other wizards they'd be fine. But I just like to throw spells out, so I'm going to get tapped out really quickly. Like my answer to a problem most often is going to be to throw out one of my higher level spells and just nip it in the bud immediately. Don't let a problem snowball. So because of that, I'm going to perpetually be in a situation where I need to effectively get my magic back. And arcane recovery, while nice, I only have one use between long rests, so I view that as a really heavy like limitation. Then, like, I'm going to have to be hyper conservative with my magic, which is not great when you're a wizard that you specialize in magic. But I'm gonna stop harping. I gotta stop. I just it's one of the reasons why I just didn't feel so enthused to finish this. I read that and I was just like, this is cool, but it also makes me sad. I think I even said this in actually some of the older videos. Anyways, level 18, you get spell mastery, which is very nice. This is a good one. You achieve such mastery over certain spells that you can cast them at will. So effectively, they are cantrips. You choose a level 1 and a level 2 spell, one each, in your spell book that have a casting time of an action. So you can't choose like rituals and stuff like that. You always have those spells prepared and you can cast them at their lowest level without expending a spell slot, which is fine. That's perfectly acceptable. To cast either spell at a higher level, you must expend a spell slot. That's perfectly fine. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can study your spell book and replace one of the spells with an eligible spell of the same level from your book. That is phenomenal. It sucks that it's only at a long rest. Again, you're really like keyed into this long rest as your only way to like swap things out. And it kind of sucks you can only replace one of them at a long rest. Like if you're really familiar with these spells, I'm surprised you're only able to like just swap one out. Like why not both? But whatever. That's the way they rule it. That's the way they rule it. Still phenomenal. Like this is great to have up to 7 cantrips. That is super useful. And the fact that one of them can be even level 2 spell, huge potential with that. Huge. Like that is great to see. But it still pretty much relegates your power to like a lower mid level, because yeah, you can throw out like a good number of spells. We're gonna see like the really big ones that you're gonna want to use. Um, that you're not going to really have a lot of casts for are kind of frustrating because like you can only gain back up to level 5 spell, which is, not bad, but it goes all the way up to 9. So your really big answer spells, you have no way of getting access to them once you've burned them. So level 19 epic boon, same as everything else. Kind of curious on the spell recall, what exactly this is. You gain the following benefits: increase your wisdom, intelligence, or charisma by 1. Whenever you cast a spell with a 1 to 4 spell slot, roll a d4. If the number you roll is the same as a spell slot's level, that spell isn't expended. That is pretty nice. Helps you stick in. Not upset about that. At some point, I'm just gonna have to make an entire thing on like epic boons. But I digress. Anyways, level 20, signature spells. You choose 2 level 3 spells in your spell book as your signature spells. So you have 2 level 3 spells. These spells are prepared. You can cast each of these once at level 3 without spending a spell slot. When you do so, you can't cast them in this way again until you finish a short or long rest. To cast either spell at a higher level, you must expend a spell slot. So, once you pick these things, you can never swap them. Like, that is it. You, like... It's nice, and the fact that you're able to, like, always cast them is also nice. The fact that you can only cast them once is okay. It effectively gives you a little bit more like sticking power, but like honestly, I wish it was a higher level spell. Like if it was a tier 5, tier 6 spell, so you can finally get something, a little extra casts on the higher end, so you can really put out like some serious DPS or have just something to just stay in there at the higher end, because like the martial classes can keep swinging at those higher levels once they're at them. They hit really, really hard and keep hitting really hard. But the magic classes, like once they like yeah, they have that like boom, I cast that magic action, I've done the thing. That's really it. Like they are tapped and they can't really get back up to that level until they long rest. So it's like they're heavily restricted if they go and reach into that higher level of power. But I mean, maybe the point is that you just have like a lot more options in theory, because I mean they are more flexible than the martial classes, but I don't know. I you can tell I'm very conflicted on the feeling for this. Now, something to note, since this is for all the rookies, these are really important call outs to know. You don't have to worry about it when you're just trying to kind of figure out like what do spells do, but once you're really thinking about like how you're going to be using spells, these are really important to know. Your concentration spells mean you can only use one at a time. So you can pop a spell, it will still be active as long as you're concentrating on it, and you can cast other spells while concentrating on that one, but the second you cast another concentration spell, it's going to break that initial spell, and then that spell is going to be concentrated on. You can't hold 2 concentration spells simultaneously. Very important to remember. Your ritual spells normally take time. Sometimes you can cast them as an action, but you like lose certain benefits in those cases. But rituals tend to take a little bit. There are sometimes components as well. Not always. Normally, when you see components, it's R and M. The M ones are the material components, and they're not always consumed, which is a very important thing to note, because if it consumes that component, that means you need to keep having a supply of it, or a large surplus of that material in order for you to keep using it. So there you go. The 3 really simple things you need to keep in mind. These are all your cantrips that you could potentially get. You can know up to 5 of them once you hit level, I think it was 15. So that's a pretty good size list. I'm pretty happy with that. These are your level 1 spells. It is quite large. It's very nice. And as I said, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, very famous spell. Your level 2 spells, massive list. Very nice to see. Level 3 spells, very large list as well. That's good to see, considering these are like the bulk of where you're going to actually have actual ability to cast them more than once. And if you're supposed to be the Swiss Army knife of magic, it's good to see a really dense list here that you can add. It just sucks that, like, you're not going to be able to get, I mean, like, even your level 1 spells, you're only going to be able to cast them 4 times when you're level, like, I'm sorry, I just have to go back to this. This just frustrates me to no end. I actually overshot. You're gonna have at level 20 only 4 spells you could cast of level 1. Like what? Really? 4? That's it? Get 3 level 2s, 3 level 3s? I mean, it's nice that you get like 3 level 5s. Yeah, that's nice, but like these are going to be the ones that I rely on. I pretty much top out at getting the maximum number of them all the way at level 6. So it's just like it kind of begs you to go cross class into something else because yeah, sure, you're going to constantly be adding in more spells and more like things you can know in your spell book. That's nice, but at the end of the day, you're not really going to get a lot to play. I mean, it's really frustrating. It's really frustrating. I mean, even if you go to level 9, you're only going to get 3 level 4. And I mean, that's a decent amount of spells you have there. That's 4, 8, 12, 16. So you're going to have 16 spells you can cast potentially, and then you're going to have 4 spells that you can constantly chump out. So and you have 14 potential choices. But it's like if you have a really long run between your long rests, you could easily tap yourself out of all your level 1 spells. And then you lose all your level 1 spells. So, like, effectively, you're kind of wanting to upcast things. Because, yeah, sure, you lose your higher tier spells, which are really powerful, yeah, but, like, effectively, you're losing your flexibility if you, like, you're better off losing these higher ones because they can't go down. But you can always go up. So it's like if you have a massive list of lower spells that give you that flexibility to be able to answer any problem, it like I understand where they're going with this. I understand why they did this, especially once you come all the way to the end with Wizard after looking through everyone else and you effectively see them effectively follow the same distribution. Like all casters are effectively relegated in a very similar manner. The issue is that the manner effectively says, look, because you cannot refresh yourself easily, the bards, the druids, the guys that can effectively reset themselves with short rests have a lot more staying potential. And they're kind of a hybrid melee class, so they're more martial as well. So like they get so much to just be able to stick in that fight. I know I said I was going to stop griping, but I just oh, my boy. It and it is strong. It is still really strong. It's just I miss that state potential. But oh well, it is what it is. So you get all these spells at level 1, 2, again, large lists, great spells. I'd honestly wish you could have every single cast, like have all the druid spells, have all like the was it druid, cleric. Like, I wish you could have well, maybe not the cleric. Cleric would make sense not to be able to have that, and I guess not the paladin spells either. But like, everyone else's spell set would make sense to be able to figure out how to get it to work, or maybe like a spell that's new but very similar to like another group, and you would have that ability. Like, you know, useful things. But I I digress. Level 4 spells, that's a big list. It's nice to see. Level 5 spells, that's a huge list still for level 5. That's bigger than every other one. Level 6 is also huge. Level 7 is pretty big also for level 7 spells. Level 8, pretty big group. And level 9, that's great. You're still only going to be able to cast one, but in theory, you could have, most of these known through one way or another, especially if you manage to get, what was it? What level was this guy? Yeah, if you were to kill a level 17 wizard and get his book, you could, in theory, gain 2 spells at least of level 9, and then you could grab yourself when you got to level 17 2 other level 9, so you could in theory have 4 level 9 spells potential to consume that one slot. Not that you're ever going to get more ability to cast them, but you could then learn a lot of them, and then you'd have a lot of playability with what that high level spell could be. It's a shame you'll only be able to use one of them. They are extremely powerful, and fair enough, you can only use one, but it's like even like your level 8, your level 7 spells, one use. That's it. That's all you got. So unless you figure out some other way, like an item or an equipment or something that can give you another high level spell slot so that you could kind of like throw out multiple. Pardon me. It's best you're going to get. So 6, 7, 8, which is your anti-magic field. It's pretty nice. A lot of the anti-magic stuff kind of got like way lower down. It's no longer as easy it used to be. And then level 9. All good stuff. Very solid. Now we're going to get into these subclasses. Note, there's 4 of them. They are interesting. This very first one is I I don't know how to feel about this one. It's cool. It's cool, but it is very strange because it's kind of like a tank, but not really. Like, it's almost like a support, like off healer kind of. Well, you'll see. I'll go through this. It'll make some sense. You're all about blocking, banishing, and protecting, ending harmful effects, and banishing evil influences. So, like Dresden, except he's more about throwing fire at people's faces, but it is what it is. Level 3, you get the Abjuration Savants. You get to choose 2 wizard spells from the Abjuration School. Each of these must be no higher than level 2. Add them to your spell book for free. That's nice. So when you hit level 3, you get the 2 for free, just because you're a wizard, and then you get another 2 as long as they're Abjuration. And then whenever you gain access to a new level of a spell slot in this class, you can add 1 wizard spell from the Abjuration School to the book for free. So whenever you gain the next tier, so if you only have level like 3 spells, you gain level 4, you get a 4th spell. If you get a 3rd spell, but it's a level 4 spell. Then once you get access to level 5, you get 1 free level 5 Abjuration spell. Level 6, so on and so forth. So in a way, when you hit 9 and you gain access to it, you could get 3 spells effectively. Actually, yeah. So you would, if you killed that level 17 wizard, you would have 5 potential spells. Actually, assuming that they're also inside of this, you'd have potentially 6 abjuration spells, or 6 total spells, one of them being an abjuration spell, and then a random collection of 5 other ones. That's not terrible. That actually, actually no, I think like 5 level 9 spells, you only have 1 spell slot. That's not bad. That's actually a respectably heavy group. Granted, you have to somehow get a level 17 wizard's book, which would be extremely dangerous and difficult. Maybe you could trade for it, but I doubt many of them would be willing to trade for them. Maybe you'll get lucky and find a scroll with a 9th tier spell. Be literally the center point of an entire campaign. But you could do it. Yeah, it'd be really difficult to get more than those 3 tier 9 spells. Extremely difficult. Yeah, realistically, you're most likely only going to have 3. Unless the campaign goes in a very specific way, then maybe you could get a couple more. But even then, it will still be extremely difficult and expensive to get that many spells. Which, I mean, to be fair, it was always difficult and expensive to get spells that way, but it's even more difficult and expensive because you're so relegated with your spell slots. And the only ways to counter magic is either in this subclass or like you specialize in it, but then you only have so many like spell slots. It's not great. Level 3, Arcane Ward. You weave magic around yourself for protection. When you cast an abjuration spell with a spell slot, you simultaneously also create a magical ward that lasts until you long rest. The ward has hit points maximum equal to twice your wizard level plus your intelligence modifier. So 25 is the theoretical cap, which when you're at level 20, people can have like hundreds of HP. It's not a huge amount, but it is a good amount for someone that's been rolling d6s to that point. So yeah, gotta respect it. Whenever you would take damage, the ward takes the damage instead. If you have any resistance or vulnerabilities, you apply them to reduce the before you reduce the HP. Damage reduces the ward to 0 hit points, you take the remaining. While the ward has 0 hit points, it can't absorb damage, but it still remains. That's important to note. Whenever you cast an abjuration spell with a spell slot, the ward can regain a number of hit points equal to twice the level of the spell slot. That's pretty nice. Alternatively, as a bonus action, you can expend a spell slot and the ward regains a number of hit points equal to twice the level of the spell slot expended. Once you create the ward, you can't create it again until a long rest, which is fine. No, it doesn't say anything about it being dispellable. So once this exists, it's on you, and someone with detect magic could detect this thing on you if you were to do it. But I mean, it is kind of what it is. Projected ward. When a creature that you can see within 30 feet of yourself takes damage, you can take a reaction to cause your arcane ward to absorb that damage. That's nice. This damage reduces the ward to 0 HP. The warded creature takes the remaining damage. That creature has any resistance or vulnerabilities, apply them before reducing the HP. That's not bad. It's not phenomenal, but it's not bad. And because you can like do spells that are giving them defensive abilities, this is a way to effectively protect them even more. It's nice. And once you hit level 10, you gain Spellbreaker. You always have Counterspell and Dispel magic prepared. Whenever you cast those spells, you can do so as a bonus action, and you can add your proficiency bonus to its ability check. When you cast either spell with a spell slot, that slot isn't expended if it fails to stop a spell. So, It's pretty good. Especially if you choose that to become one of your cantrips, then you could constantly be despelling. Third level spell. Third level spell, so you can get one free use to effectively throw out. It's not bad. Not that you're going to have a massive number of uses of them. I mean, you'll have 3. And then if you choose both of these as your like perpetually like prepared signatures, then you have in theory like 5 uses of them. That's not bad. I mean, like if you're in multiple encounters against spellcasters, this is not phenomenal. Now, granted, you could upcast them, but man, it just feels like such a limitation. Such a brutal limitation. But it is what it is. Can't do anything about it. So, level 14, you get spell resistance, and that's just advantage on saving throws against spells, and you have resistance to the damage of the spells. That's pretty good as far as like being able to survive encounters with other mages. The one downside, as far as I see it, is that at the point where you're wanting to use these kind of things, you're pretty much already forced into the role of you're a mage yourself. So while you're more survivable to like wizard duels and stuff, you're probably not going to want to cross class. Maybe you cross class into wizard. That would make more sense if you cross classed into wizard after being a fighter for a bit. But man, you're effectively choosing to forego a lot of power in the fighter. But granted, you're going to be a very tanky wizard, all things said and done, because the fight, or in theory, you're going to be tankier. So, yeah, interesting. All right, on to the diviner. These guys are people that want to look into like the like past, present, and future. They're all about seeing through space, time, and consciousness. Very much like they're, in my opinion, the closest to the warlock as far as like what they're looking for. Now, level 3, you get the divination savant. You get to choose 2 wizard spells from the divination school, each of which must be no higher than level 2, and you add them to the spellbook for free. Noticing a pattern here? Let's continue. In addition, whenever you gain access to a new spell level slot, you could add 1 wizard spell from the divination school to your spellbook for free. The chosen spell must be a level for which you have spell slots. Okay, there we go. Level 3, Portent. Glimpses of the future begin to press onto your awareness. Whenever you finish a long rest, you roll 2 d20s and record the number of rolled. You can replace a d20 test made by any creature that you can see with one of these foretelling rolls. You must choose to do so before the roll, and you can replace a roll in this way only once per turn. Each foretelling roll can only be used once. When you finish a long rest, you lose any unused foretellings. So, yeah, in theory it's nice. You can like protect people from bad events, give people assured success, or improve their chances of failure. It's not bad, actually. It's very respectable, with some smart thinking. Level 6, Expert Divination. Casting divination spells comes so easily to you that it expends only a fraction of the spellcasting effort. When you cast a divination spell using a level 2 plus spell slot, you regain 1 expended spell slot. The spell slot you regain must be of a lower level than the spell slot you expended. It can't be higher than level 5. So if you were to pop a level 9 spell, you could at least gain back a level 5 spell slot as long as it's a divination spell. That's not terrible. It's not phenomenal, but it's not terrible. It could be very useful. At least lets you have a situation where you can stay in a little bit longer in a situation. but it is what it is. Divination is not normally combat focused, so you're going to be bringing utility more often than not. But you'll be able to at least keep being utility focused, at least up to level 5. Level 10, you gain Third Eye, you can increase your power of perception, and as a bonus action, choose one of the following, which lasts until you take a short or long rest, and you can't use this feature again until you take a short or long rest. You can choose to have Dark Vision, Greater Comprehension, which allows you to understand all languages. Or, sorry, you can read any language. Not that you can understand it spoken, but you can at least read it. See Invisibility without expending a spell slot. That's pretty good. And if I remember correctly, oh yeah, it is limited to yourself. It's not, okay. For a second there I was thinking, wait, is that a touch spell? Could you give other people the ability to see invisibility? No, it's only yourself. But it's still pretty good. At level 14 you get Greater Portent, and instead of having 2 dies, you get the 3. So you can swap 3 rolls that you pre-select. Now, coming on to the third to final, a very strong choice and a longtime favorite of many people, the Evoker, which is a very offensively focused wizard. These are your guys that are normally throwing fireball and chaining lightning. They're all about doing damage. They are going to be most often your battle mages, your very offensively focused wizards. You get Evocation Savant. You get to do exactly as always. Choose 2 evocation schools, add them to your spell book. Whenever you get a new layer, you get to pick one more. You also get Potent Cantrips. Your damaging cantrip affects even creatures that avoid the brunt of the effect. When you cast a cantrip at a creature and you miss with an attack roll, or the target succeeds on a saving throw against the cantrip, target takes half cantrip damage, if any, but suffers no additional effects of the cantrip. This, I think, is the counter to the Bard School of Dance's ability to take no damage. You can still hurt them if you're an evoker. It's not bad. It's not insanely powerful, but it is respectably powerful. You also get at level 6 Sculpt Spells. You can create pockets of relative safety within the effects of an invocation. When you cast an invocation spell that affects other creatures that you can see, you can choose a number of them equal to 1 plus the spell level. The chosen creatures automatically succeed on their saving throws against the spell, and they take no damage where they normally take half damage on a successful throw. That's pretty good. Fireball on the party, pop little pockets of safety, none of them are hurt. That is phenomenal. Like, I would love this. Just, nope, I'm not going to hurt my friends, but Fireball is the answer. That's great. Level 10, Empowered Evocations. When you cast a wizard spell from the evocation school, you can add your intelligence modifier to 1 damage roll of that spell. So if you have a +5, you get +5 damage. It's not phenomenal, but if it's an explosion, +5 to potentially 6 targets, yeah, 30 extra damage across the board, it can be quite nice. It's not huge if it's a single target, but if it's an AoE, it can add up. So, level 14, Overchannel. You can increase the power of your spells when you cast a wizard spell with a spell slot of 1 to 5 that deals damage. You deal the maximum damage with that spell on the turn you cast it. That's phenomenal. However, it has some drawbacks. First time you do so, it has no adverse effects, and if you take a long rest, you reset this. But if you do so again without taking that long rest, you take 2d12 necrotic damage for each level of the spell slot immediately after you cast it. That's insane. That's so if you were to cast like a tier 3 spell this way, that'd be 6 d12s. That could, in theory, kill you. Like, yeah, yeah, I, I don't know how to feel about that. Like, you need some way to buff your health, like a lot. And there's no way to ignore like resistance or immunity, but it doesn't say anything about temporary HP. So if you had some way to give yourself like a lot of temporary HP, you could pop it once and then maybe a second time and survive if you were using like something over tier 3. But whew, I would be scared to use this on anything past tier 3 if you have the negatives. That would be so dangerous. You could kill yourself so quickly. It just that is like gambling right there. And each time you use this feature again before finishing a long rest, the necrotic damage per spell level increases by 1d12. Yeah. And that's like why I'm like, this is really powerful, but at the same time, it's so, so dangerous. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, I would understand if it like there's a possibility of like instead of like all the damage going out on the side, like you take some of the damage, or like it's possible the spell will just fizzle out entirely or something like that. I just have a really, or like you become silenced for like 2 turns or something, like, some really detrimental effect that might not, kill you outright. I don't know. It's really hard to look at this and say like that is a really good level 14 thing. Like, it can be extremely powerful, but man, it's so dangerous to really use after that first time. It's just, whew. The illusionist. This one I really like. This one I think is funny. You get the illusionist font, which is the exact same thing. You get 2 illusion spells right out the gate, and every time you get a new spell tier, you get 1 free spell from that spell tier. You also get improved illusions. So if it has a 10 plus range, the feet is increased by 60 feet. So that's pretty nice. You also always know minor illusion cantrip. If you already know it, you get to choose an additional wizard cantrip of your choice. The cantrip doesn't count against your list of known cantrips. And you can create both a sound and an image with a single cast of minor illusion. And you can cast it as a bonus action. That's a pretty nice bonus. So again, this would work great for rogues or bards. It's pretty nice. Level 6, Phantasmal Creatures. You always have Summon Beast and Summon Fey spells prepared. When you cast either spell, you can change its school to Illusions, which casts a summon creature to appear spectral. You can cast the illusion version of each spell without expending a spell slot. But casting it without a spell slot halves the creature's hit points, which is fine in my opinion because they're free. Just cast them again. Unless they're like on a long range, like recon mission. Hmm. Hmm. I think it can only stay within those 90 feet, but that's still pretty useful for a scout. Um, you can only do so after a long rest. That's fine, whatever. Level 10, Illusionary Self. When a creature hits you with an attack roll, you can take a reaction to impose an illusionary duplicate between yourself and the attacker. The attack automatically misses you, and then the illusion disappears. That's pretty nice. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. You can also restore your uses of it by expending a 2+ spell slot, which isn't great because you don't have many of them, but it can save you from taking a lot of damage. So, in that regard, it's pretty respectable. At level 14, this is where it gets really funny. You learn to weave shadow magic into your illusions to give them semi-reality. So when you create an illusion spell with a spell slot, you can choose one inanimate, non-magical object that is part of the illusion and make that object real. You can do this on your turn as a bonus action while the spell is ongoing. The object remains real for 1 minute, during which it can't deal damage or give conditions. For example, you can create an illusion of a bridge over a chasm and make it real and cross it. So you can really Looney Tunes a situation where, like, you make a tunnel through a mountain and you run through the tunnel and make it disappear behind you. Like, this is literally like Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner esque material here. That's that's just funny in my opinion. This is a very strong choice. But across the board, I have mixed feelings on what exactly these wizard subclasses are doing. I don't think for the most part they're particularly impressive. The restrictions overall on the magic casters I think are very heavy and they really limit the staying power. So, yeah, they're really strong, but they don't have as much stay potential. So, you're not going to want a party full of magic casters. You might want one magic caster in your group, but you really might not want them to be combat focused simply because they just aren't going to have as much power that they can pump out. Maybe they'll have one or two spells at a higher tier to maybe handle something ugly, but for the most part, they're really being relegated more towards utility focus just by the fact that they don't have enough spell slots to necessarily be a strong martial class or a strong offensive class as they've always been. Sure, they can do one really big drop, but are they going to be able to follow it up? Probably not. But anyways, guys, this is Mr. No Souls here, and well, I'm going to sign off now. Take it easy. Thank you very much for watching, and bye bye.